Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to go over from complete scratch how to make the Chrome Dinosaur game in Unreal Engine 4. Unreal Engine 4 is a great game engine that allows you to create games, and it can be done without code using their visual scripting system, Blueprints, which is what we're going to use today. To get started, make sure you have Unreal Engine 4 installed. You can download it by visiting their website, unrealengine.com. So now we're going to take a final look at the game we'll be creating. We have this T-Rex character which we're going to set up, and we're going to give him the ability to do different things. So he can jump over obstacles and he can also duck underneath obstacles. As you can see in the background, we'll be making a day and night cycle, so the game will switch between day and night. In the top right, there are some scores. We'll be creating a score tracker which will track the score of the player, and a save system which will track and tell us the furthest that the player has ever gone. If I get hit by a cactus or a flying dino, my T-Rex does his death animation and it will show a game over screen. If I click on this retry button, it will open up the game again and we have another chance to try and beat our high score. So let's get started. So if we just open up the Epic game launcher, I'm going to be using the latest version of Unreal Engine, version 4.260, and you can download it by going to library and then just clicking engine versions, and you should be able to add it if you don't have it. So I'm just going to click this launch and it will start to open it up. So once it's loaded, you want to click games and then we'll click next, and then we're going to select the side scroller template, as the game we'll be making is a side scroller. Then we'll click next. I'm just going to call this project my Chrome Dino game, and then we can create this project and it'll start to load. So once it's loaded, we'll have this template, and if we click play, we have this little side scroller character that we can play with. The first thing we want to do is replace this side scroller character with our dinosaur character. So I'm just going to click this little icon and it'll show all the different folders we have. And I'm going to click on the content folder and I'm going to right click and create a new folder, and I'll call this my dino. So this is going to be where I'm going to import all my dinosaur characters, animations and things. So I'm going to leave a link in the description with all the assets that you'll need to make this game. So I'm just going to open this dino folder, and the first thing I'm going to do is drag in this T-Rex. So I think it's only FBX files that work with Unreal Engine, and we want to make sure that we check this import animations, and we're going to import all the animations of this T-Rex character. We can close this, and then we're also going to import the T-Rex's texture, so it's just this T-Rex texture folder. So once we have that, we can just right click and create a material, and this will create a material for our T-Rex, because by default it's imported with the wrong material. So if we just click on this skeletal mesh, we can see that the T-Rex has this white, but we want it to be the T-Rex's texture. So we can do that by just selecting this material, and then we can just select the material that we just created, the T-Rex texture map. So I'll just select it. So once it's loaded, we'll have our T-Rex and it has this cool texture. So this T-Rex, I think it's from like Microsoft, and it will also apply this texture to all the animations. So in the Chrome Dinosaur game, the T-Rex can run, jump, duck, and has a death animation. And by default, the T-Rex that we imported doesn't have all these animations. So we're going to create some animations by modifying some of the original ones that we have in Unreal Engine. And then we're going to set up an animation blueprint which will control when our T-Rex enters these animation stages. So the first thing we're going to do is create a ducking animation for our T-Rex that can duck underneath obstacles. So what we're going to do is find the T-Rex run animation. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to rename this T-Rex run so we know what it's called. Then I'm going to select it and Control C and Control V, and then we're going to rename this one T-Rex duck, and this will be the ducking animation when our T-Rex ducks underneath stuff. So you can see it's just running, and then what we want to do is just select anywhere around its body. If we head to the skeleton tree, we can move up, and I'm going to select its spine, and under here I'm just going to click pause so the T-Rex stops moving and I can select it easier. And then I'm going to rotate it so that if I rotate this bone, my T-Rex will start to duck. And so that this rotation stays in place, we just want to click this add key, and now my T-Rex will just be ducking. So this is the animation we're going to use when our T-Rex is ducking. So next thing we're going to do is set up a death animation for our T-Rex. So I'm going to select the T-Rex roaring animation, and I'll select Control C, Control V, and I'll right click, and I'll rename this my T-Rex death. So if we just double click and open it up. So at a frame that I like, so where the dinosaur with its mouth open, I'm just going to select this. Then I'm going to right click and click remove frame 0 to 86. Then I'm going to right click it again and remove frames 1 to 131. So now this will just be a single frame. This is the animation that will play when my T-Rex is dead. But I want the T-Rex's body to be rotated a bit up. So I'm just going to rotate this a bit up. I think I'll rotate this one as well. So this will be the animation that plays when my T-Rex dies. And then we're just going to click add key and it will save this. So now I'm going to click save. Then there's one more animation we need to make, which is the T-Rex jumping animation. And we can get that from the T-Rex run. So I'm Control C, Control V, I'll right click, I'll rename this and call it my T-Rex jump. So this will be the animation that plays when my T-Rex is jumping. So I'm just going to go to a side view of it, I'll pause it, then at a frame where it's legs, so this is a good frame, the beginning frame, I'm just going to right click, remove frame 0 to 46, then right click again, remove frames 38 to 77, and then remove frames 1 to 38. So this will just be the animation that plays when my T-Rex is jumping, and I want my T-Rex, whoops, that's the wrong bone. I want my T-Rex's body to be a bit up, so I'll just rotate this, and then we can add key and save. So now we've set up all the animations that we'll need for our T-Rex in our game. So next we're going to create some animations which will control when our T-Rex enters at certain animations. So I'm going to right click and we'll look for animation, and we'll look for blend space 1D, then we're going to select the T-Rex skeleton, and I'll just call this T-Rex blend space 1D. Wait, do I need this? So next we're going to set up some animations blueprints which will control when our T-Rex enters certain animations. So we want to just right click, look for animation and blend space 1D, and we want to select the T-Rex skeleton, and then I'm just going to call this T-Rex blend space 1D. This will control my T-Rex's idle and running animation state. So I'm just going to look for T-Rex idle, so it's this one, and we want to drag it to 0. And then we want to select the T-Rex run, and we just want to drag it to 50. And we can see when I move this screen slider, if I put it at 0, my T-Rex is idle. And when I move it slowly towards 50, my T-Rex will start to do its running animations. So we're going to control in this animation blueprint at what speed it's going to go. I'm just going to click save. And then next we're going to create an animation blueprint, and this will contain and hold the data for all of the T-Rex's animations. We want to right click, look for animation, and then animation blueprint, and then I'm going to select the T-Rex skeleton and select OK, and then we can just call this T-Rex anim BP, so T-Rex animation blueprint. And we just want to double click and open it up. And then this output pose will control the final pose that our T-Rex will do. So to decide this, we're first going to right click and create a new state machine, and then just plug it in here. So what's inside here will control the final animation that our T-Rex does. So we just want to double click and open this up, and in entry we just want to drag in our T-Rex blend space 1D, and then we'll just plug this into here, and we go in here, we're going to create a variable which will control whether our T-Rex does the idle or the running animation. So we can right click on this, promote to variable, and I'll call this speed. And if I just click compile, my T-Rex will do its idle animation because it's at speed of 0. But if I move this up, so I'm just going to make this 50, my T-Rex starts to do its running animation. So that's always set the blend space 1D. So I'm going to put this back to the default value of 0. So now I'm going to set up a bunch of different variables which will control whether my T-Rex should be ducking, or whether it should be jumping up, or whether my T-Rex should be dead. So we want to create those variables. So we just want to check this, click on this variable button, and then I'm going to call this one is dead, question mark, then I'll create another one and call it is jumping, and then I'll create another one called is ducking. Then we're going to drag in our T-Rex's death animation, our T-Rex duck animation, and our T-Rex jump animation. And then from our T-Rex plane space 1D, we're going to drag off it and go into the T-Rex death. So in order for our T-Rex to do its death animation, we're going to double click on here, and we want to make sure that the T-Rex is dead. So we'll get is dead and plug it in and compile. So if I check this box, my T-Rex will do its dead animation. So when the T-Rex is dead, it's going to do this animation. So now we're going to set this up for the other ones. So I'm going to plug this in to T-Rex jump and plug this in. And then we're going to get is jumping. When my T-Rex is jumping, it will enter this animation. But from the T-Rex jump, we're also going to drag back to the idle animation so that when our T-Rex is not jumping, that it just goes back to its running or idle state. So we'll drag is jumping. Whoops, I selected the wrong one. So we'll drag in get is jumping, then drag not boolean. So if our T-Rex is not jumping, we will go back to our idle running state, and then we'll do the exact same thing for our T-Rex duck. So to enter the T-Rex duck, we'll check is the ducking variable true, and if it is, we'll enter the ducking state. Then we'll drag off this back to the T-Rex plane space 1D, and if is ducking is not true, then we'll go back to our normal blend space, to our normal animation state. So we can just click compile to save this all. So that we know what speed the T-Rex is and whether it's jumping or whether it's ducking or whether it's dead, we need to head over to the event graph and tell the animation blueprint when the character should do these certain animations. So what we're going to be doing is referencing the try get owner form, and what this will do is if we head over to side scroller blueprints and go blueprints, we're going to be referencing the data and variables inside the side scroller character, and this will tell us what animations to do. So the first thing we're going to do is get is valid, look for is valid, and this will just make sure that we are the side scroller character. And then from here, the try get owner, we can get the velocity of it. Then from here, we can get the vector length, and then this will tell us what speed the character should be at. So we want to look for set speed, and this will tell us the speed that our character will be at. We'll just plug it into is valid, and then from the try get owner, we want to get movement component, and then we want off this, we want to look for is falling. So this will let us know if our character is falling, and if our character is falling, that means he is in the air and is jumping. So we just want to plug this in and plug this in and compile. So now our character will know when we're running and whether we're jumping in the air. We're going to set up the is dead variable and the is ducking variable inside the side scroller character. So next, if we go to the viewport, we can see where this mannequin, but we want it to be our own T-Rex character that we've just been working on. So under skeletal mesh, we're going to select the T-Rex, and it's very big. And then under animation blueprint, we want to look for T-Rex animation blueprint. So now we are T-Rex, and then as you can see, the capsule position is really small for it. So we just want to adjust this. So I found a good length is 250 here as the capsule half height, and the radius for it to be 130. So this will be the radius for my T-Rex, and I'm just going to position him so that he's roughly in here, and we can click compile. So now we can test out our T-Rex. So he's a bit big for this default thing, so let's just delete all of these things so that our character has some space to move around. So I'm just going to delete all this, move it up, and now I click play. Okay, as we can see, the camera's very zoomed into the character. To fix this, if we head over to the side scroller, we want to head over to spring arm 1, and then we want to make we can see the camera's very close to the T-Rex, so we want to make this really far away, so we make it 1900. So now the T-Rex is really far, because our character's really big. Click compile, click play, and we can see where the T-Rex, we can move with WASD. When I press W, I jump, and get in the air, and I do my jumping animation. So now we've set up a T-Rex character. So one more thing we're going to do is set up the ducking in the T-Rex character. So we head over to the event graph. Sorry, what we want to do is head over to project settings, and then head over to input, and then go action mappings. So as we can see, jump, and we can use W, up, or spacebar to jump. So these are all the different buttons that we can use to jump. And we want to click action mappings and click duck. So these are going to be all the different buttons that we can use to duck. So I'm just going to click and then look for the down button, and then we can just add, because maybe we want more than one button that we can duck with. So I'm going to look for the S button. So S, sorry, I can't find it. So here it is. So the S. So when I press the down or S button, I'm going to make my character duck. So now that we have that set up, we're going to set up ducking. So if we just right click, we want to look for duck. So what are we going to do when we're duck? We're going to make our character do the duck animation. So to do that, we're going to drag in our mesh. From here, we're going to get his animation instance, and this will allow us to reference the T-Rex animation blueprint. So from here, we want to cast to the T-Rex animation blueprint. So first, we're getting the mesh that we are, then we're getting the animation blueprint that he's using, and from here we can set the ducking variable to true and just check it. So if we press the duck button, we're going to be ducking. Then if we just select all of this, I'm just dragging with my mouse, Control C, Control V, and then I'll plug this in here. We can uncheck ducking, and so that we know what this does, we can just select, and then press the C key, and I'm going to click right duck, so we know that this bit handles all our ducking script. So I'll just compile, close this, click play. So now I can duck, and we can see my dinosaur's head bends down when I press the duck button. So now I think we've done the first part and we've set up the characters. So next we're going to set up some obstacles that our character can run into. So next we're going to set up some obstacles that our player can run into, and when he runs into these obstacles, we're going to set it up later that the game ends. So if I head over to my content folder, I'm going to right click, create a new folder, and call this my obstacles. And then we just want to double click, open it up. Then I have my folder with all my obstacles. So we're going to drag in this cactus model, and just click import. We also want to drag in the cactus texture, and we also want to drag in the raptor texture and this flying raptor model. So we'll just drag this all in and import all. So once we have this, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the T-Rex. We're going to select all the textures. We can select them all at once by holding the control key. And I'm going to right click and create a material. And I'll create a material for all of them. So next, we should apply all these materials to our different static meshes. So we can do this by just double clicking and then selecting the correct texture. So I've just done it with the cactus, and we'll do this with the flying raptor. So I'll just select one for its eyes, so I think I call that raptor. That's the raptor texture. So I'll select one for its skin, that's the raptor texture. And then we'll select one for its eyes as well, raptor eye. And then we just want to wait for these to load, and then we're going to set up some active blueprints for them. So once we've imported all of our models, we're going to create some actors for them. So we're going to right click, look for blueprint class, then select actor, and I'll just call this my cactus BP. So my cactus blueprint. We'll double click and open it up. Then if we go to the components tab, we want to add component, look for static mesh, and then under static mesh, we're going to look and select the cactus model that we just made. So this cactus model is very big. So if you want to scale down a big model, you want to check this little lockbox, and then if I put 0.1, it'll scale it down in all its axes. So it's scaled down to the X, Y, and Z, but you have to enable batch check, and it'll scale it down equally in all of those axes. So I'm happy with this length, and then we're going to add a component, and we'll add a box collision. So we're going to make it when our player overlaps this box collision, it will cause the game to end as he has hit the cactus. So you can just scale it with this. So I'm going to scale mine a bit up to the top, and then also in the Y a bit. So I'm happy with that length. So compile. And in the Chrome Dinosaur game, there are 3 there are 3 different cactuses, I think. So there's one with 1, 1 cactus with 2, and 1 cactus with 3. So I'm just going to rename this and call this my cactus 2 BP, as this one will contain 2 cactuses, so it'll be a bit wider. So we can just select this, or Control C, Control V, and Control C, Control V. And I'm going to need to make my box collision a bit wider, so I'll just widen it. Oh sorry, this cactus has 3 in it, so I'll just rename this cactus 3. And then I'm going to create one more cactus which just has 2. So I'll rename this and call this cactus 2 BP. Double click, open it up, and we can just delete one of the cactuses and shorten the collision for this. So we'll click this and scale it down. So in the Chrome Dinosaur game there's also this flying raptor which our character will have to duck underneath. So we're going to set that up the same way we did the cactus. We'll right click, look for blueprint cast, select an actor, something that can be placed on the world, and I can just call this my raptor BP. Can double click and open it up. And then we're going to add component, static mesh, and then in the static mesh we're going to select the flying raptor model. But we want it so that our player ducks underneath these raptors, so we can move it a bit above in the air so that our players can have to duck underneath these guys. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to scale it up a bit, so to make my raptor quite big. And then we're going to add a box collision that, again, when my player hits this collision, he will die, so he'll have to duck underneath it to avoid it. So I'm just going to scale this up a bit and make it a bit down. I may need to adjust this box collision when we see it in the game, but for now this will be fine. So we can just compile. So now we have set up all the enemies. We've not set them up to kill the player, but we'll be doing that later towards this video. So I'm just going to close this and we can set up the enemies. So now that we set up all the actors, we're going to create an infinite terrain which will go on forever and ever, and on this infinite terrain we're going to spawn these obstacles for our player to run into. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my content folder, I'm going to right click and create a new folder and call this my infinite terrain. So then if we just double click and open it up, I want this terrain to have a sandy effect because in the Chrome Dinosaur game you're in the desert. So I'm just going to use the sand texture. I got it on opengamearc.org, but I also include it with all the other files. And then we want to right click and create a material. So now we have this sand mat. So now we're going to create the infinite terrain. So we're going to right click, create a blueprint class, and it's going to be an actor again. And I can just call this my infinite terrain blueprint. And we can just double click and open it up. And then what we want to do is look for add component, static mesh, and then under static mesh we're going to select the template floor. So this will be in the side scroller template by default, and now we have it. So I'm going to scale this up, so I'm going to scale it up in the Y, so make sure this is unchecked, so because I only want it to be 1.5 in the Y axis, so make it 1.5, and then we want to change the material to be the sand desert material that we just imported. So now our infinite terrain has a sandy feel to it, and I'm going to look for add component again. I'm going to look for box collision. So I'll just drag this up, and what this box collision is going to do is when our player overlaps it, we're going to make it spawn another infinite terrain in front of this one. So I'll just drag this up, so make it pretty big so our player can't miss it. And then in the details panel, so that we know our player's actually overlapping it and we can see it, we're going to look for hidden in game and uncheck it. So this will make it so that we can see the collision box in the game. So I'm just going to go back, and then we want to scroll down. With the box selected, you want to click on component we can overlap, and then this other actor we're going to cast to our side scroller character. So when our side scroller character, which is our dinosaur character, overlaps this box, we're going to cause something to happen. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click and look for spawn actor whoops, from class, and then we're going to spawn this infinite terrain, and we're just going to plug this. But this infinite terrain needs a location to spawn, so if I click compile, it wouldn't work because it needs to know a location where it's going to spawn. So that we have this location, so whoops, we can't see it because it compiled wrong, so I'm just going to uncheck this, break the link, and compile so you can see it. So that we know the location for our infinite terrain to spawn, we can add component, look for scene, and I'll call this my spawn location. I'm going to scroll up, and then in the location, you want to make it -6,000. So this will make it spawn directly in front of this one. Then if we head over to the event graph, you can drag in the spawn location. Then we'll want to look off this and look for get world transform. So this will get the location of it in the world. And then we can spawn our terrain here. So I'll just click compile. We can test this out. So I'm just going to delete this, I'm going to delete this, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete this. Then I'm going to drag in my sand infinite terrain, and we just want to place it behind on this dinosaur. So I'm just a bit out of whack. So I'll move this here. So now if I click play and I run, we can see that it spawns another terrain. Okay, so we're going to make some adjustments to the character because one, he is very slow, and we want it so that the character is just moving forward all the time. So if we click here and click edit, start on the character, under character movement, we can see this is inherited. We want to look for walk speed, and by default it's 600, and that feels really slow, so I'm going to make it 1500. So my character is going to move very fast now. Then in the event graph, we can see movement input. So to move, we have to hold the right mouse, the right key, and it'll start to move in that direction. But we just want our character to just start moving everywhere by default. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to right click and look for event tick and just plug this in. So now every frame, it's going to move my character -1 in the Y direction. So if we click compile, play, my character is just moving by default, and he's moving along this infinite terrain. As we can see, as he overlaps the box, it will spawn another one and another one. I can press the jump key, and so the jump height's not very high as well, but I can also press the down key and I can duck. So that we fix his jump as well. So I was really far away from the character. To get close to him, press the F key and it'll position you within like a close distance. So we go to character movement. We're going to change his jump velocity, so I'm going to make this like 1900. I think that's a good value. Click play. So I'm much more happy with that jump velocity. That's much higher. So now I'm going to spit out the obstacles that we made to spawn along the infinite terrain. So to do that, I'm going to head to the viewport. We're going to add another scene. At this time, it's going to be the obstacles. So I'm going to look for obstacle. I'm going to call this obstacle. I spelled that wrong. Sorry for that. And I'll just move this towards the end of the infinite terrain. I can click compile. Then if I go to my event graph, what we're going to do is right click, event begin play. And then we're going to do two things. So over this, I'm going to look for sequence. So the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a delay. I'm going to destroy this actor to that, because within 10 seconds, within 10 seconds we should have run past this actor. So we're going to destroy it so that we don't have loads of these in the world, which will eventually cause the game to become really, really laggy. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to spawn one of our obstacles that we made. So we're going to look for spawn. No, the first thing we're going to do is switch on integer. And what this will do is, depending on the value of this, it will do something. So we're going to add 4 pins. So I'm just going to delete this and move this all the way up so it's far away. And we can comment this and call it spawn terrain. So event we can play, the first thing I'm going to do is, depending on the value of this number, we're going to do certain things. So if it is on 0, we're going to spawn actor from class, and we can spawn the cactus. So I've got the cactus BP, and I'm just going to duplicate this. So this one, it'll be the cactus 2 BP. This one, it'll be the cactus 3 BP. And then we can duplicate this one more time. And this one, it'll be the raptor BP. So if it's 0, we'll spawn 1 cactus. If it's on 1, we'll spawn 2. And if it's on 2, we'll spawn 3 cactus. And then if it's on 3, we'll spawn raptor. So I'm going to add one more pin, and if it's on 4, it will do nothing. So these places need a place to spawn from, so we're going to drag in our obstacle. We can get the world transform, and then we just want to plug this into spawn transform for all of them. So I'll just plug it in here and plug it into this one. So we want this value to be random. So to do that, luckily we can just right click and look for random integer in range. So what this will do is it will just spawn a random number from a minimum value of 0 to a maximum value of 4. So I'm going to make it 4 and plug this in. So now, if we can play, it's going to pick a random number, and depending on that number, it will spawn a random obstacle. So I go to my viewport, compile, and click simulation. You can see it decided to spawn a cactus. And we can test this out. So I click play. It spawned a raptor. Okay, raptor is a bit high, but we can see it spawned a raptor that time. It spawned 2 cactuses that time. So now we have our obstacles randomly spawning and generating. So now we have set up the infinite terrain.